Welcome back, guys. Um, I thought I'd do this video to help if you have been thinking about doing a full arch install. As you know, I am a big fan of Manjaro for a lot of reasons that I've outlined in prior videos. But I was intrigued by the Arch Linux distribution as as a standalone, and Mo was up for a challenge, and so I decided that I would take a shot at installing Arch Linux from scratch. And so I'll go over my experience on that with you now. Uh, I looked online and I found um, some videos that explain the installation process. And so I read through the Arch Wiki, which outlines the installation process, and there's a beginner's tutorial also. And it does a pretty good job of outlining all the steps that you need to follow in order to get Arch Linux installed. But I always like to see someone else actually walk through it. And so I found a video online in YouTube, and it was this basic Arch Linux install for beginners by Stillborn86. And it's a pretty good video. um, I had to keep stopping it and going back and stopping it and going back because there are a lot of steps, and if you're going to attempt this, you want to make sure you get each of them right and you're comfortable with each step before you move on to the next. And so if you use this video as a guide, um, it it's pretty good for walking you through. Now, there were a few issues, as there are with all instructional videos, where I had to go back multiple times on some segments uh, in order to get things right. But I did that and I worked through it. And he was installing on a virtual box, so that it was a little different because I was doing a hardware install, doing an install to an internal hard drive, which is always a little bit different. He didn't need Wi-Fi. He was hooked up through Ethernet, so he didn't cover the wireless configuration, which was extremely important to me. So basically, I had to hook up an Ethernet cable to a Wi-Fi extender that I have, which basically grabs the Wi-Fi signal from my router upstairs and sends it through Ethernet cable to this computer. So that's how I got around it. And then when I finished the install, I had to go looking for ways to enable my Wi-Fi. So I went through all the process, and then now I will tell you that this video that I followed is about an hour long, 52 minutes. I would say that the entire excuse me, I would say the entire installation process, um, as it relates to the video, probably took me 3 hours because of all the stopping and starting and going back and refreshing and reviewing and making sure I was comfortable with everything. Now, I will tell you that I installed it to a hard drive, but it was not a hard drive where I had any other data. As a matter of fact, I unplugged every hard drive inside my computer except the one that I was doing the Arch install on, just to be safe. So, and that led to some problems later on that I'll go into with you, because I'm going to review this with my thoughts and my conclusions. Uh, and so this video hopefully will give you a better idea of whether or not you want to do a full Arch install and some of the pitfalls that you could run into. So you can learn from my mistakes and my challenges. So I went through the video, and as I said, it took me about 3 hours, and then I ended up with an install that was only configured for Ethernet, did not have my NVIDIA drivers, did not have my printer installed. So I decided on this install. You can install whatever you want. I elected to install all of the X packages so that I would, and XFCE, so that I would have a desktop GUI, graphical user interface, when I actually booted into Arch. So let me go through a couple of the challenges that I faced. Now, as I mentioned, I didn't have my NVIDIA graphics card working. Now, if you remember in a prior video for Antergos, I went through how to install the NVIDIA graphics card. I used the same process to install the NVIDIA drivers. I used the same process, and it installed properly. When I was trying to configure my wireless in Manjaro, all you basically need to do is install Broadcom-WL, and that sets up my particular wireless card. Now, with Manjaro, when you do the install, you have you have everything you need installed to get your wireless working. As a matter of fact, most of you, if you went through the Manjaro install, your wireless card would be working right out of the box. Not so in Arch. In Arch, you basically have to configure. You have to set up everything. You have to start your network manager. Lots and lots of steps that Manjaro does for you. But again, it's a learning experience, and I always enjoy learning something new. So I actually enjoyed the process. So I went through and I did all of the steps, all of the extra steps in order to get my Broadcom wireless working, which I finally did. And that alone probably took me 2 hours. And I would say in this install, the way you see it now, I have about 12 hours total time invested in installing and configuring. Now, if you take a look down at the bottom, I'm gonna go through what I've been able to do. I've got Caffeine installed. I have a clipboard manager. I've got my Wi-Fi, as you can see, and I've actually got two Wi-Fi adapters working. This one is my internal, my Broadcom, and I also have a USB Wi-Fi stick that I plug in when I'm doing an install. That usually eliminates the need for an Ethernet cable, but with Arch it did not eliminate the need for the Ethernet cable because it wouldn't recognize this one either. So I've got all of my networks configured. I've got pSensor. I have Redshift. I've got Simple Screen Recorder. I've got Synapse. My audio is working fine. I've got my calendar, my date and time, and log out, shut down. I even put the little Arch icons on my menus. You can see one over here on the right hand side. I went and looking for an Arch icon online. I've got my GUVC, I'm sorry, I've got my XFCE menu Got it set up the way I want it. I've got the little arch icon over here also. As you can see, I've got my NVIDIA card working, 352. One of the things that I couldn't get working until last night was my OpenGL, GLX. It was still using the Mesa, and it was causing me to have lots of difficulty installing Steam, War Thunder, and also play on Linux. And so I ended up, as you can see, my server, my GLX server now is NVIDIA. Even though the NVIDIA driver is loaded, it was still using the Mesa for OpenGL. So I had to find a way to fix that, which I did. So I've got this show desktop file manager. I've got my terminal and Chromium. Now, let me go through a couple of other things with you. Now, as I mentioned, when I did the install, I unplugged all of my other drives. So the only drive that was actually visible in the system was that hard drive that I was installing Arch to. So that automatically became device SDA. There were no other devices during the install. Well, after the install, I plugged in all my drives again. And that SDA became SDD, and that totally messed up my fstab file. So I had to do some research online to find out why, and let me show you. This Linux partition, as I've mentioned before, I have my system configured so that my distributions are on smaller partitions, and they're working off the Linux data drive, which has all of my videos, photos, Steam games, movie files. So basically, because of that fstab issue, my drive designation was wrong, therefore my fstab file was wrong. I couldn't get this LinData or WinData to mount. So I had to do some research, go on to the Arch forum, ask some questions, and in the end, what I had to do was edit my fstab file by hand to reflect what was actually showing in the system. And so the easiest way to do that was to actually take my Manjaro fstab file and modify that. So I used my Manjaro fstab file and I modified it after gathering information on my drives. I modified that, and I will show you what that fstab file looks like now. So let's see, am I in the right place? No, it's under etc. It's under etc. Okay, so if you go into etc and go into fstab, basically my UUIDs were wrong. You see SDD, it actually said SDA, so it was messing with the configuration of all of my drives. And once I got this straightened out, all of my drives mounted fine, so that everything shows up, and that was resolved. My printer, which configured very easily within Manjaro, would not configure with Arch. And basically I had to go into the Pacman libraries configuration file and enable 32-bit libraries, which were needed for the printer configuration. Now, ironically, that was also needed for Steam and War Thunder. Uh, Once I enabled those and I refreshed the system and I updated, I was able to install Steam. I was able to install War Thunder, and I've got all the games working now except the BattleNet games on Play on Linux. I still haven't been able to install BattleNet properly. It just won't finish the installation. So I had to do a lot of digging. Now, let's see. Oh, so let me show you what I ended up doing. This is the video that I followed for the basic install, Stillborn 86. So if you Google Basic Arch Linux install for beginners on YouTube, if you search in YouTube, you'll come up with Stillborn 86, and that's what I followed for my install. It isn't perfect, but it got me through it. Now, I went onto the forum, the Arch forum, and I said, okay, because I had heard that the Arch forum, the Arch people were similar to the Debian people. They basically don't really want to help you. They would prefer that you do your own research, read up, and try to figure it out yourself. In Debian, when I've done straight Debian installs in the past, I've gotten a lot of pushback from the Debian people on the forum because they have this and this is not all, I wouldn't lump them all together, but there are some who have somewhat of an elitist attitude, and they know Debian inside out, and they want you to take the time to do the same. Well, we don't all have that kind of time to be able to dissect everything you need to get everything working. And not only that, sometimes when you read through the instructions, it's not totally clear. If you're not 100% up on the terminology, just reading through it isn't really going to help you a whole lot. Sometimes you need someone with just common sense and basic English to interpret and tell you what you should do. So I tried to solve all of my issues myself because I knew I would get a little pushback on the Arch forum. But I wanted to see what the overall attitude was. So I took it as far as I could, and then I put this question up on the Arch forum in the newbie corner, and I said, first Arch install, just a few issues I need help with, please. And basically it was my printer and let's see, and my drive's not mounting properly, that Lin data. So I asked for help on those, and I did get some help. They, in many cases, I got some information that was helpful. So that's why I say I never want to lump everybody together, because there are a lot of people just like you, me and you on the Arch forum that went through the same things, and they're more than willing to help. So, but here they asked me to familiarize myself with make package instead of using YAOURT. Now, YAOURT is the Arch user repository. It's the community repository, and it has a lot of packages available. And basically, when you download using that, it's basically compiling. It's compiling it's pulling in all of the separate ingredients to the package, and then basically going through a make package, getting that package ready to go. It's very useful. I use it a lot. But this individual was telling me I should familiarize myself with make package instead of using I think they pronounce it Yowert. Well, that's all well and good, but I don't have the kind of time or patience that it would take to learn how to do that from scratch. I have attempted it in the past with some success, but it's not something I want to do every day on a regular basis. And so I am going to use a UART, and so that didn't help me at all. That piece of advice didn't help me at all. But there were enough people here online that helped me, and I was able to get my fstab file straightened out. I had posted the way it looked, and so through a variety of suggestions on the forum here, I was able to, because basically it came down to, I came to the realization that I would have to alter my fstab file by hand. So Jason Ryan, who is the forum administrator, suggested that I alter it by hand, and he gave me a link that explained how to do that. Well, that link, again, it didn't walk the novice through how to do it. It assumes you understand all of the terminology. And so what I did was I altered it by hand, but I used my Manjaro fstab file as a guide, and that worked. And I responded by saying I altered it by hand and rebooted. Now all is well. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so that was my first attempt at asking for help. If I go back to Newbie Corner, you'll see that I have some other posts asking for help. Okay, and basically I said, how can I boot directly to the desktop? Now, one of the issues that I have that still hasn't been resolved is when I select the drive to boot from to get into Arch, and I click on the grub selection, the Arch in the grub splash screen or boot screen, it takes me to a command line prompt where I have to log in with my name and my username and my password. Then once I log in, it just brings me to another command line prompt where I have to type in start X. Once I type in start X, it takes me to this desktop, my XFCE desktop. Okay, normally when you select your boot from the grub screen, it takes you right to the desktop. So I said, when I select Arch in my grub boot screen, it takes me to the CLI, command line interface, where I have to enter my username, then password, then start X. Is there a way to just select Arch and go directly to the desktop? First response was the Wiki, which I went into the Wiki, the XINITRC, and I understand what XINITRC is, but I didn't, after reading the Wiki, I still didn't have an understanding of how I should modify that file to solve my problem. Then I got another response to, again, another Wiki, and I'm sure if you are more familiar with Arch, that would be helpful, but just reading through that didn't help. So then the forum administrator said, please read the wiki before posting. These types of questions have been asked many times, and the answers documented there. Well, if I read through the wiki, I can read, but some of the terminology and some of the instructions are not clear to me. They don't fully explain what I need to do. And so this issue still has not been resolved. I've gone through the wiki, and since no one has responded with any specific instructions, reading through the wikis just didn't do it for me. So I was not able to get that issue resolved. And so, as you can see, sometimes they basically, instead of helping you, they point you in the direction of the information you need and encourage you to figure it out for yourself. And I guess that goes back to the, teach a man to fish proverb. But in this case, if you don't understand all of the terminology in the wiki, you're not going to be able to resolve your problem. And sometimes you just need plain old basic English instructions with a step by step from someone who is willing to take the time to get you over the hump. Once they do that, then of course you learn it in a way that makes sense to you and you'll retain it. So that's some of the elitist issue coming out as it also pertains to Debian. So in that sense, it's a little bit disappointing. So basically, you can see I do have a working install. It's very nice. I couldn't get Kazam running for some reason, but Simple Screen Recorder is running. GUVC View, when I downloaded it by that name, it wouldn't work. Turns out Arch has GUVC View-GIT. That, once I downloaded it, it worked. So I've got everything pretty much running. Now let me give you my opinions on Arch as it relates to Manjaro. All of the issues that I had with Arch are pretty much resolved by Manjaro out of the box. They take all of this 10 hours of work that I've put into this. Manjaro does all that work for you in the background. They've done all of the background work and debugging and configuration up front, so that way when you install Manjaro you have a fully functional working Arch install. And if you go onto the Manjaro forum, let me tell you the big difference between the Manjaro user community and the Arch Linux user community. And again, I'm generalizing, and it's really not fair to do that, but I just want to give you the basic difference. When I posted a question on the Arch forum, the forum administrator told me to read the wiki before posting because these types of questions have been asked many times. I understand what he's trying to accomplish. However, it didn't help me. If I go to the Manjaro forum, the difference is I posted a question about my conky. I had some shadows showing up. The Oberon, the member of the support team, not only answered my question, but he sent a response and I didn't have time to look at it. And so he sent me a private message saying, "Hi Lan, was just wondering if you've seen this reply. Kind greetings, Oberon." Do you see the difference? It's like night and day. Oberon on the support team for Manjaro was concerned because I hadn't responded to his latest suggestion on my question. So he just sent me a private message saying, "Hey Len, didn't know if you had seen this." Wow. All I can say is wow. That's the difference. That's what makes Manjaro so much different than Arch. It's Arch, but it's for the average person. And So after going through an Arch install, an Arch configuration, again I'll ask my original question. If Manjaro exists and is so well configured out of the box and so helpful, the community is so helpful, why would you want to go through the frustration and the time it takes to install Arch on your own? To be honest with you, after all this time, my Arch install is still not running as smooth and as trouble-free and as efficient as Manjaro, which took me 30 minutes to install. So while I appreciate the opportunity to learn something new and go through the Arch install, and I'm proud of myself for actually going through it and actually getting a working system, why would I leave it on my hard drive? Manjaro does everything and so much more. And the argument that, well, it's Arch and you've built it from the ground up and it's only what you want on it, I can do the same with Manjaro. Manjaro doesn't add a lot of bloat to the install, but they take care of your printer, they take care of your Wi-Fi, they take care of your NVIDIA. Everything works. I still don't have BattleNet running properly. BattleNet works fine on Manjaro. On Arch, I still have to log in from the command line and start X. I don't have to do that with Manjaro. So while I appreciate the Arch learning process, and I did learn quite a bit by going through the process, I'm just going to stick with Manjaro. I mean, I'm not going to bang my head against the wall with Arch needlessly. There's no benefit, there's no payoff. And so that is my opinion, guys. Feel free to go through the Arch install on your own and see how you like it. Of course, everybody's different. I'm just giving you my opinion. As I said, there were some very helpful people on the Arch forum, but the Manjaro forum is another story. It's just it takes it to another level, and I haven't seen that kind of service and caring about the end user on any of the other forums except Peppermint 6 and Linux Lite. Those two are exceptional in my opinion. The reason I prefer Manjaro over Linux Lite and Peppermint 6 is because, or any Ubuntu based distribution, is because with Manjaro, you don't have to concern yourself with PPAs and trying to find a way to use packages. Their package base is so extensive that between Pacman and Yowert, you can find anything that you need. It'll install, it'll run. It's just, it's just so easy. So from an ease of use standpoint, I think Manjaro is the best. I'd have to say it's the best at this point in time. You can select from a large variety of desktops. And so I've gone on about Manjaro probably long enough. So just to summarize, guys, if you want to go through that Arch install process, feel free. You'll learn a lot, and I hope you make it through it. If you do, you may want to keep it. It may suit your needs, and you may decide Arch is for you. After going through the process and having this very nice Arch install, I'm going back to Manjaro. As you can see, I have the Conky working. Pretty much everything is working except the time it takes to get it that way is just wow. It's so extensive. And as I said, I still don't have it the way I want it, but I've put enough time into it. I'm done with the Arch basic install. I'm gonna go boot up my Manjaro and I'll be a happy camper. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys, this comparison. Sorry it went on a little bit long, but hopefully you got enough out of it to be able to make your own decision as to what you'd like to do. Again, my hat's off to the Manjaro community. And please rate, comment, and subscribe. Share on social media if you feel it will be beneficial. And I will see you next time. Take care, guys.